Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'm very excited to be chatting with my friend, Dr. Ankur Verma. Did I say that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. So, Ankur, can you share a little bit about your bio and what brought you to this space, the carnivore, the low carb community?
Yeah, so I'm a practicing emergency physician in New Delhi in India, and I've been practicing emergency medicine for about 18 years now. And I thought I knew it all, but that's what all the doctors feel, and that wasn't the case. In 2021, I found out that my triglycerides were about 600 and my TG to HDL ratio was 16.86. Not that I knew what that ratio was all about at that time, that's just retrospective. But yeah, the 600 triglycerides actually hit me. And then I figured out that I never knew anything about nutrition. I was never trained in nutrition. The only thing I knew was my carb intake is what's leading to my triglycerides being so high, right? So I cut off all my processed foods at that time, processed and ultra processed foods. And my cousin gave me a book called Metabolical by Robert Lustig, Professor Robert Lustig from UCSF. And that started my journey into metabolic health and, keto and then carnivore. I lost a bunch of weight at that time, but I was still doing keto. And carnivore happened last year in April in 2023 when somebody sent me Paul Saladino's reel when you were still fully carnivore. And I thought, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I love my meats anyways. I just have to cut off a little bit more carbs that I was still having when I was keto. And yeah, I mean, there was no looking back. I got so much better after that. I got leaner. I saw so many different changes. And then I made this. I mean, it was like a revelation to me that what I was seeing in my department was absolutely, related to metabolic health and all the patients that we were seeing. So, the matrix just opened up for me, and I was like, this is the root cause. And yeah, I mean, then I went down the rabbit hole. I started my podcast in 2021. I've had so many guests, including you, Anthony Chafee, Robert Kills, Sean O'Mara, Thomas Seyfried, like, all the biggies like yourself, and learned so much more from all of you regarding carnivore and how it actually helps and what's the proper human diet, species specific diet. Did my own research. I didn't believe all of you just blindly, by the way. No offense. But yeah, I went through studies myself. I read a lot of books. Yeah, no, I am a published author. I've published about 40 papers till now, so I know how to read literature. I know how to make inferences out of that. It's not that I just go on the abstracts, but I do, deep dive as much as I can. So, I mean, my journey in short, yeah, I mean, that's what it's been all about. And, I've started to treat a lot of my patients and my family with carnivore and, metabolic health and, just trying to fix them up.
Fantastic. Did you notice any particular changes when you went from keto to carnivore?
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing keto, I was still having like, stuff like oats in the morning and stuff, Basically, I was still counting my calories. So, yeah, and I thought oats was really good for me. And I used to do that. And, my jaw had started clicking at that time. And I had no idea why that was happening till I quit having oats when I went fully carnivore. So I figured that was one of the reasons, a little bit of oxalates and the lectins and the phytates basically
Hmm.
could have led to that. But yeah, I mean, even when I was doing keto, I used to still have some GERD symptoms, some heartburns. I used to still have a little bit of PPIs at that time. Uh, and you could see inflammation on my face. Now that I look back at my photographs, I had lost like about 21 kgs, but you could still see inflammation on my face. I'm a lot more leaner now, for sure. All my blood markers and everything, that's absolutely fine. My insulin's at 2 and all. My triglyceride to HDL ratio is now 1.6.
Wow, nice.
So yeah, I mean, so that's absolutely fine. And I mean, there are like subtle changes. My soreness after workouts has reduced significantly. That I was discussing with my wife. My bladder control's much better.
Mhm.
I mean, if we're out for parties and and we need to use the loo, and I have better control now. It was just a revelation, I was like, you know what? I don't need to run to the bathroom anymore.
Nice.
And she's like, yeah, I've and she realized the same thing. So, these subtle changes that you have, my sleep is so much better for sure. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I've started using blue light blockers in the nights, but my sleep definitely has gotten much better than what it used to be, for sure.
Yeah, same thing happened to me. Like I remember my triglycerides were over 150, like I think like 170 or something if I remember correctly. And then for me, just doing keto, it dropped it to 45 milligrams per
Yeah,
deciliter, which is insane to me, you know?
yeah.
Want to take a moment and thank Ancestral Supplements for their amazing products from beef liver, beef organs, and colostrum, fish eggs, all of their fantastic carnivore friendly supplements that can really speed up healing on a carnivore diet. If you are wondering if you might be lacking certain nutrients, if you're not 100% sure that you're getting the whole complement of vitamins and minerals on a carnivore diet, then you may want to look into organ supplementation. I don't particularly like the taste of organ supplements, which is why I take these desiccated or dried up organ supplements from Ancestral Supplements. You can use my code to get 10% off. My code is Dr._Sarah10, and that's going to get you 10% off your order on ancestralsupplements.com. And now back to the podcast. And did you struggle with cravings during that transition?
Surprisingly, no. I had no cravings. I might have been headstrong, I don't know. But because, I mean, I used to work out almost every day. And, I've had like a bunch of trainers used to tell me eat whatever you want,
Mhm.
pile on the calories since you work out so much. So I used to eat everything, processed foods, ultra processed foods, my meats, my carbs,
Mm.
everything. But once I quit, it was just quit. I threw out all junk food from my home. I wasn't too much into sodas and Coca-Cola and all of that, so we never used to keep them at home unless until we're hosting people over. So I was never drinking sodas or drinking my calories. I was not too much into canned fruit juices unless until I was traveling to the US or something where the orange juices were like absolutely amazing.
Ah.
That was something I used to look forward to. But otherwise, at home, I never got the chance to, juice and, drink all of that. So that wasn't too much. And but yeah, I mean, my weekly pizzas and all my burgers and other processed foods and my bag of Doritos and Cheetos and all of that would happen for sure. Pastas and refined flours and all that. Yeah, that was happening. But once I quit, I actually never had any cravings. It was very
That's
surprising to
amazing.
me because I'd heard a lot and I used to love my chocolate, so it just went off.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're not dabbling in those kinds of foods, because they create the cravings, right? They're
Yeah.
drug-like chemicals. And so people think of them as fast food, but they're really drugs, chocolate,
Yeah.
pizzas, all that kind of stuff. So if you're not having the drug, you're not going to go through the withdrawal phase from withdrawing from the drug a few hours or a few days afterwards. So that's what the cravings are. You're just going through the withdrawal phase.
Yeah,
What
absolutely. Yeah.
right? What about your wife is carnivore as well?
Yeah. She turned carnivore from January of this year. So
And
it's
did
going to be
she
a year for her.
and did she struggle with cravings? I noticed usually men have an easier time for some reason doing carnivore versus women. I'm wondering what her experience was like with that transition.
So it took her a time to, actually cut off her carbs. She was doing meats with me because I was having meats every day, right? So she had to have the meats. But then she would require a bit of rotis or a bit of rice, not too much in quantity. She was actually stuffing more of the meats in it. So you can say that she probably just weaned it off. And from January the 1st, she completely stopped having carbs. She's doing really well. She doesn't have any cravings. Maybe at a party or someplace she wants to have like a spoon of rice. That's okay because I know that she's insulin sensitive now. She's doing much better. Her hypothyroidism's reversed. So all of that is there, and she's lost a bunch of weight. So yeah.
And what about the family situation, the family at large, when you get together with your extended family, what has their reaction been?
So my family's always been, meat eaters. So I mean, even if we go for parties, even when I was not a carnivore, there would always be meat served, but we would always have it with the carbohydrates,
Hmm.
right, with the rice and the rotis and stuff. But now that we go, the only thing I tell them is, it should be cooked in ghee or maybe virgin coconut oil,
Hmm.
and that's about it. And but the meats will always be cooked.
Hmm.
So we end up having just the meats. I mean, the meats or the chicken or the fish, whatever's made, and we
Yeah.
do that. So I mean, there are a few in my family who've actually reversed diabetes and hypertension on carnivore. My uncle who had diabetes for 25 years.
Wow.
I made his doctor write in his prescription that he's a recovered diabetic and hypertensive and does not require any more medications for the same.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so I mean, it's doing really well in the family at least. My brother's turned fully carnivore from I think March or April this year. He's doing much better. He stopped taking his statins. This is my younger brother, so he stopped. He's been on statins for 10 years because the doctor started him on statins, and his finger pains have disappeared miraculously after
His
stopping the statin drugs.
his what?
Finger pains. He used to have really tight, stiff fingers, and they used to hurt all the time. And
Very
I told him that's
interesting.
it's the muscle damage from the statins that you're taking.
Right.
And once he stopped, gone. Yeah,
Okay. And so, India, you're in New Delhi, right? So,
yeah,
would you say the vast majority of Indians tend to follow a vegetarian diet over there in that specific area? Because I know India is very large and different areas
yeah.
have different cultures and diets and things like that. But where you're located.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all over India. We have a largely standard Indian vegetarian carbohydrate loaded diet for sure. There are a lot of people who would probably try to hide that, but it's not. We're actually doing a couple of researches in my own department. One of them is basically the diet preferences of every patient that's coming in with a metabolic syndrome or a non-communicable disease. And we've collected 5,500 patients till now, and 65% of them are vegetarians and
Right.
they love the carbohydrates. And the other 35% who are omnivores or call themselves pescatarians or ovo-vegetarians have their eggs and meats once or twice a week or once or twice a month. The rest of the time, and it's always accompanied with a lot of carbohydrates.
Hmm.
And the rest of the time, they're all plant-based vegetarians. So, that is a big problem. And I mean, if you start from breakfast itself, or you go North India, South India, East or West, wherever you go, it starts off with carbohydrate loaded foods. I mean, you have idli, dosa, sambar vadas in the South, and you have pav bhaji and parathas in the North, and some theplas and pohas and all in the West. So the breakfast is supposed to be this heavy, right? And even if you're going to go for the English breakfast, it's going to be beans and toasts and eggs, sometimes eggs, but yeah, and the cereals, right?
Mm.
So it is absolutely. I mean, the meat consumption in India is abysmal. It's like about 4 to 5 kgs per person per year, right? So that's the
Wow.
meat consumption in India. It's pathetic. So we're a severely protein deficient, micronutrient deficient population, and we're getting a lot of patients. I've started to test all my heart attack patients for vitamin B12 and their homocysteine. You won't believe I had a 27-year-old doctor come in like 2 or 3 days back. His B12 was 50 and his homocysteine was 129. And he came in with a heart attack,
Wow.
27 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So and so it's quite rampant in India. People need to wake up to the fact that it's their food which is actually causing this.
In your work as a clinician, do you try to share this information? Do you have time to do this kind of lifestyle work? And if so, do you face resistance from the clients and from the people that you're working with, just the whole hospital system?
No, I haven't faced any resistance yet. Maybe a couple of patients who have religious reasons who would, just tell me off by saying that, I'd rather die than eat meats. Okay, fine, fair enough. But the rest are actually quite intrigued because they don't hear any doctors telling them to eat eggs and red meats, right? So it intrigues them, and
Mhm.
it's like a shock value when I go into when I ask them, "What do you eat?" "Oh, we eat healthy food and vegetarian food and this that." I'm like, that's why you're sick. You should eat your eggs and meats and chicken and seafood. And they're like, "What?" And once I have them intrigued, I do spend like about 15 to 20 minutes with them, just talking about nutrition and diet. And some of them do get interested. They start following my podcast, or start following me on Instagram, and maybe take my number down for consults later on. And so that's one of the things. Another thing, my whole hospital knows that sugar and processed fruit juices are not allowed in my department for anybody. So I mean, even the barista knows that they can't get coffee with sugars downstairs, no matter who orders it. They're not allowed to enter with with the sugar sachets. The food and beverage department knows that even if a patient asks for it, they're not going to serve them any fruit juices till they have my go ahead, which they're never going to get. And that sometimes starts off a conversation with the patient, and myself. And I try to counsel them and make them understand that, you're already diabetic. Why do you want fruit juices? Like, because my doctor told me I need to have it because of my insulin that I need to take. Like, exactly. But do you really want to take your insulin all your life? I can
Mm.
get you off your insulin. And then some of them do get intrigued. So yeah. So I mean, we've started to have this conversation that my team's seeing a lot of my patients, and the correlations, and see. So even as a doctor, I can't prove any causation, right? None of us can, but we know it's happening. We know it's the lack of nutrients, or the overabundance of anti-nutrients, both of them in the vegetarian diet, which is causing all of these diseases, right? But we can only show associations and correlations.
Mhm.
And we've just sent out a case series of this dysrhythmia that happens. It's called a supraventricular tachycardia. Uh, and it's basically one part of the heart beats at like about 200 or 300, right? And these are patients who have no comorbid conditions, but we found out that the B12s were really low and the homocysteines were really high. And high homocysteines are actually associated with a lot of different types of dysrhythmias like atrial fibrillations. And same with vitamin B12. And vitamin B12 is a precursor and is actually required for your nerves and the electrical conductance, right? So yeah, I spoke to the cardiologist. I'm like, why are we not working on this? You're starting them on medications. Fair enough. The guidelines say so. You need to do that. But let's see the nutritional status also, because that's what makes sense as to why did they have this issue when they have no other past medical history. They have no structural heart disease, nothing. Right.
Right.
So now my teams started to notice all of this, and they come up tell me that we had a patient in our night shift, and we spoke to them about nutrition, and they want to meet you and understand more about meats and stuff. I'm like, that's good. That's good. Somebody
Yeah.
has to start somewhere, and it's a huge population.
You said you're a primary care physician. Did I catch that right?
I'm an emergency physician.
Emergency, right. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you working a lot of nights?
I don't do nights anymore. I do 9 to 5s, Monday to Saturday.
Night.
I have my team of junior consultants and my residents who do night shifts. I've done my share of night shifts for sure. Yeah, and I've started to do a lot of MRIs and CTs, and looking at the visceral fat after I had the chat with Dr. Sean O'Mara, and I did the experiment on myself and my team, and saw who eats what, a carnivore versus an omnivore versus a vegetarian and junk food diet, all that, and showed everybody their visceral fats, and they were quite shocked. I showed mine also, which was not that much as compared to them. So that's my baseline. I do have a little bit of visceral fat, yes, but I might have had much more before that
Right.
because I've been almost 2 years carnivore. So yeah,
Right.
I would have had much more previously, and I'm going to check it again next year and see
Right.
see how it progresses. But yes, I'm incorporating all of that. Even if I get like trauma patients and stuff, and we do CT scans, I look up their visceral fat really quickly, and then I go and talk to them. That your healing's going to be a little delayed as compared to others. Even if you don't have diabetes right now, you have a lot of visceral fat. You're going to become diabetic, and your healing is going to be delayed because of these reasons. So
Yeah.
we've started to have all of these conversations in my department.
How many of your team members would you say are carnivores?
Just one right now. That's the head of my department.
Yeah. Did
Yeah.
you convert him?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He reversed his hypertension and pre-diabetes and stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic. And what does your diet look like right now and exercise? If you do you have enough time to work out and what kind of workouts do you do?
So I do 3 days a week now. I used to do 6 days a week earlier. Now I've started to incorporate more of recovery days. So I do Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, push, pull, and legs, and just take it easy on the other days. And maybe I mean swim with my son sometimes on a Sunday, but now it's winter time, so yeah, that's not going to happen. But
Right.
I'm pretty fine. I've started to realize that my body is doing much better when I have the recovery days inside. Uh, I fast once a week for 24 hours, and I can feel the ketosis at that time, and I mean, it's always good for the body, for the recovery, for autophagy and all that. So yeah. And my
Nice.
meals, I need to get my protein intake. So, I have to divide my meals into 3 days, into 3 meals a day. So I have eggs in the morning, and then I'll have mutton, chicken, seafood, pork, buff, beef, something for lunch. That'll be like about 400 to 500 grams. And then the same for dinner.
Yeah.
And so I get in my protein and my fat intake.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do blueberries for low oxalate because I know I'll be dumping oxalates. So
Mm,
sometimes I get trigger points, and I've never had them before. So, and that's probably because of oxalate dumping.
mm,
So sometimes I do, like about 50 grams of blueberries for that.
right. Trigger points like tight knots. Sometimes you feel like
Yeah, the tight knots, the scapular region. Yeah, the
mm,
people usually have that when they have fibromyalgia. They have these trigger points flared up all over their body. So all of us have these trigger points, right? And they're the same for everybody. It just depends on when who's getting flared up. So a lot of people who have fibromyalgia actually do really well on carnivore because it's like an autoimmunity and it just gets settled down. For me, I never had fibromyalgia, but the trigger points can get flared up when you're dumping oxalates. So that can happen. And I've
mhm.
had my share of oxalates. I used to have a lot of chocolates. I used to have a lot of tea. I used to have a lot of almonds. I used to have a lot of potatoes. Potatoes is a staple for India. Every dish we have a lot of potatoes, and that's like really high in oxalates also. In the winters, it's all about spinach. So yeah, I've
Yeah, me
had
too.
I've had my share of oxalates here. So
Yeah.
I mean when I know that I'm dumping when I have these little flares of my trigger points, I take in some oxalate, my
Yeah.
low oxalate food, which is blueberry. So that's good.
So you were able to interview Dr. Thomas Seyfried, right? On your podcast you mentioned. Were you
Yeah,
able to get Sally K. Norton?
yeah, yeah,
You've interviewed her as well. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
She's brilliant. Her book Toxic Superfoods is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And do you take any supplements?
Not too much. I sometimes take whey protein, which is completely unflavored, just one ingredient. Just if I think I'm falling short of my protein intake for the day, I
Yeah.
do that. Sometimes after my workout, I do that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you add it with milk?
No, just water.
Just water and the protein
Yeah,
powder. Gotcha.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And what about some of the most recent things that you found that are surprising when it comes to success stories on a carnivore diet?
Yeah. So I mean, I had a few people over on my podcast. So there were two things, or maybe I would say three, which were really surprising. One was multiple sclerosis. Colleen Francesco. I think she goes by the name of Beef Body Healing on Instagram, and her MS lesions have actually reduced on carnivore, and she's doing much better.
Wow.
Yeah, and the second one was autism. Yeah, Ali Morgan. Uh, she had autism, and she's got three kids, one daughter and two sons, and both her sons have autism,
Mm.
and they became verbal from non-verbal
Wow.
on carnivore, and she I've done a couple of podcasts with her, and we've discussed how she deals with both her sons when they can, when they mistakenly have carbohydrates or sugars, and their autism just flares up
Wow.
and takes about 2 or 3 days to settle down. And after that, once they're back onto carnivore, they do really, really well. So, and Ali's actually reversed her bronchial asthma also.
Her what?
Uh, Bronchial asthma
Can you
on
share with
carnivore.
that? Can you share a little bit more about her symptoms?
So bronchial asthma is when you have narrowing of the airways, and you
Like
need to
asthma, you
have
mean?
asthma. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I've never heard
yeah,
anybody mention it like that.
yeah, yeah.
Bronchial asthma? Is
It's
that what you
bronchial. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I've
It's your
never.
it's your bronchus and your bronchioles, the lower airways, which get constricted, right?
Mm.
So
It
yeah, yeah.
so is it like a specific subtype of asthma, or is it more of a
It is no. The full name of asthma is bronchial asthma.
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I've never heard anybody mention the full name. Okay, so that improved.
That improved. Yeah, she doesn't require her inhalers or puffs anymore. And usually,
Wow.
people who are asthmatic actually have these flares when there's change of season. Uh, so it doesn't happen to her anymore. And
Nice.
I've seen a few other stories on Instagram. I'm trying to get them on my podcast. People who've reversed. Oh, Eddie Goki, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So
Hmm.
he's doing that's like a connective tissue disorder,
Yeah.
and he's done a fantastic job on carnivore, along with the injectables that he needs to get to maintain it, and he's doing really well. And he's like a citizen scientist, just like Nick Norwitz, and he's done a lot of research. And he wrote up old papers with Professor Bart Kay,
Yeah.
and he's written a book called Contradicted. Yeah, after doing all his studies and all his research, fantastic guy. You should get him. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. I'll have you send me his if he has an Instagram or, the full name.
Yeah.
I had a colleague of mine when I was doing my PhD. She was with us she was very bright. I think she finished her PhD, the whole program, in like 3 or 4 years, which is insane. It takes us like 7 years,
Yeah.
to finish the courses and then several years to work on the dissertation. So she was like super, super smart and hardworking, but she was already in a wheelchair because of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And I
Hmm.
remember talking to her about carnivore, and I asked her if she's tried it. She said she did, but maybe I don't know, maybe she didn't do it for a long enough period of time. At that point, it was like I can't remember last time I spoke to her. It was maybe like 5 years ago. When I was first starting to get into carnivore, and I remembered her and I reached out to her, and yeah, it's a very debilitating syndrome. I did not know just the extent of it and how much people suffer with that kind of thing, and it
Yeah.
happened. I mean,
Yeah.
she was very young. She was younger than me. She was in her 20s when she got it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have another patient of mine who, this is a big win for me because she was born into a vegetarian family
Mm-hmm.
and was a vegetarian for the past 26, 27 years. Started suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, had a child, couldn't hold a child, used to
Wow.
wake up
Yeah.
with a lot of pain and stiffness and all of that. And I convinced her to go, as close to 100% carnivore as possible, so, because she had never tasted meats, right? So she started off with eggs and chicken soup and all of that, and some cottage cheese every day. And, then started having more of chicken and eggs, chicken and eggs, chicken and eggs. In 1 month, her morning pain and stiffness disappeared. She couldn't
Wow.
believe it. She was like, "This has never happened to me since I was diagnosed with rheumatoid." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to upgrade you to more meats now,
Nice.
since you're more motivated." So that's a big win for me to convert somebody who's a vegetarian in India into a
Right.
carnivore. Yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah,
that's not going to happen too much in India. It's going to be very difficult to do that. But yeah, this is a big win. I think
I
she
can
was
imagine.
motivated enough. Yeah,
It's going to be difficult all over the world, but yes, I can see how in a more vegetarian focused culture, it's going to
yeah,
be even that much more difficult,
yeah.
you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's just there are a lot of obstacles from a lack of information, lack of knowledge, to all of the myths, surrounding the fear mongering when it comes to fiber. Don't we need fiber? Cancer and red meat and all the epidemiological studies that have messed us up for centuries, I feel. You know, yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
but the advantage for me is we don't have too many meat eaters, but we have patients with all of these disorders, right?
yeah,
I've got cancers coming in, I've got colon cancers coming in, I've got
yeah,
diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, all of these coming in, and they're all vegetarians. Tell me how red meat causes any of these.
right, exactly,
And that's
exactly.
what I'm going to show in my own studies. Obviously, I can't show causation. It's going to be a correlation or an association for sure, but it's going to be a very, very strong association.
Yeah. What are you plans for research? Like, are you doing more carnivore related studies right now? Is that the direction you're going in?
So I can't do interventional studies with nutrition in India. I mean, it's not possible, and I don't have too many carnivores anyways. Uh, but yeah, I mean, maybe do something like a blood work of a carnivore like myself and somebody else, maybe a vegetarian or somebody else who's not been diagnosed with anything yet,
Yeah.
but maybe something like that. But yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot of things on associations
Mm-hmm.
for sure. So we're doing one on non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Okay.
We're doing one on metabolic syndrome and non-communicable diseases. We're doing one on kidney stones and ureteric stones and oxalates.
Okay.
Intake of oxalates. We're starting a one which is going to be interesting, which is we get a lot of geriatric age group people with trivial falls who fracture themselves, right? So we're going to take those patients, check their sarcopenic levels, and take the diet preferences, right? So we know how much muscle wasting they have and their diet preferences, and obviously our hypothesis is that they're all going to be vegetarians with a lot of muscle wasting.
Mm.
Let's see if that can be proven wrong. So that's one thing that also we're focusing. So all the different aspects of health, metabolic health, maybe longevity, or healthy aging, basically. And we have a lot of geriatric coming in, who are very, very unhealthy, and uh, you know,
Yeah.
they end up bedridden. They end up using a lot of resources. They're on multiple. I had this patient come in and tell me that again he thought he was eating really healthy, and when I was doing the survey, and I was like, you're on 17 medications. How do you even remember to take all of them? He was on 17 medications and was about to be started on dialysis. I
Wow.
said, how is your food healthy? But he thought he had diabetes because of his genes,
Right.
but he was a vegetarian having a lot of carbohydrates, right?
Yeah.
So he thought he was eating right. It's not his fault. A lot of doctors think that their advices are absolutely right regarding diet and nutrition, right? So you can't blame the layman. And if you have authorities in India actually promoting the food plate, which India actually eats, the food plate actually has so much of cereals and legumes and fruits and vegetables. This is what India eats. They're still really sick. I was just reading up on inflammatory bowel disease the other day, and I found India to be a close second to the US,
Mm.
right? And I found another paper which said India consumes the correct percentage of dietary fibers in the rural and the urban sectors.
Wow.
If you're consuming those dietary fibers, why are you getting all of these IBDs, right? And when you get these IBDs, the doctors tell you to eat more fibers,
Yeah.
which can be really detrimental. So, I mean, if you're having all of these fibers, why are you having these IBDs?
Right. And I think
Right?
also rates of obesity are pretty high in India, right?
70%, yeah. 70% overweight and
Overweight or
obese, yeah.
obese.
Yeah.
Kind of like here. That's the
Yeah.
same as the United
Yeah.
States.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Absolutely.
combine
Yeah.
the overweight group with the obesity group, then that's three-quarters of the population.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We just have different reasons. Yeah, we have a lot of seed oils also, but that's when we eat outside. But
Hmm.
most of the homes actually cook either in mustard oil or coconut and ghee.
Okay.
And then this is what I've seen in my own research that we're doing. A lot of people, they might have some biases to actually let us know what they're using. But then they're quite open about it because they don't know that seed oils are unhealthy. So if they're using any seed oils, they'll tell us, yeah, we're using sunflower oil or we're using
Right.
this brand and that brand.
Right. That's
Yeah,
crazy. I mean, if the American Heart Association is telling us that seed oils are healthier than any other kind of oil or, animal fat, so we cannot
yeah,
expect, if the United States is sharing those kinds of recommendations, most of the other countries kind of tend to follow suit. I remember when I was going through dietetic school in Lebanon, we didn't have like our own. Now they created their own nutrition organization. But I went to school like around what 2005 to 2009 to with my bachelor's, and then finished my master's by 2012. And always we were always being educated based off of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So we're literally just following what the United States is putting out. And they have to do that because if they don't, then our schools aren't accredited. And if we're not accredited, I can't take those degrees the way that I did and come here and get my PhD at the University of Miami. So I understand why there's this fear of sharing anything outside of that, but we're educating our dietitians with the wrong information, which is making people sicker, definitely less healthy and gaining weight more easily, more inflamed, all that kind of stuff.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
happening all over. Yeah,
What?
for sure. That's happening all over the
Oh,
world. Yeah,
yeah,
the
exactly.
curriculum's the same. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. Especially, I feel like in developing countries, because a lot of students have a goal of leaving and going to Europe, Australia, Canada, the United States, and to be able to leave based off of your degrees, you want to make sure you go to a school that's accredited. And so that's why it's a really big deal for those schools to follow the curricula that are definitely in line with what is licensed and what is accredited, and that follows what the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics is putting out. And definitely, I think the medical system is probably in the same exact way, um, following the same curricula.
yeah.
So, what are some of your goals in the future? Are you planning to stay in India, or are you fantasizing about coming to the United States?
No, no, I'm gonna stay in India. I have a lot of work to do over here. A huge population. Need to work on that. Need to raise more awareness over here. Uh, trying to collaborate with more people in India. So we've got some like-minded people in India. Like Mehak in Bombay, Roshni, who's an endocrinologist. She's low carb, keto. And she understands carnivore also, although she's a vegetarian, but then she loves her eggs, so she eats 8 to 10 eggs a day, which is quite a huge amount.
Mm.
Uh, and I mean, we've got quite a few. We've got a couple of doctors. I know Varshita, she came on my channel, on my show. She's a young surgeon, carnivore, reversed a lot of her own syndromes. So yeah, I mean, we need to. I've started to go to conferences in India and just speak on metabolic health, and let people ask the questions, because it's a shock value for those doctors also. When
I can imagine.
when I tell them that I'm actually reversing diseases for which you have patients coming into you every week, and you just putting them on medications, and they keep coming back to you. So we've started to have these discussions. I know a lot of people in the emergency medicine community in India have actually started to understand what I'm talking about. This actually started to pick up a little bit of carnivore on themselves. They're starting to eat more meats. So I mean, it's a good sign. I mean, once I establish myself in the metabolic field, probably I'll quit emergency medicine. Let's see. I'm not saying anything. If people from emergency medicine in India, if you're going to watch this, don't worry, I'm still around to save lives. But then my message out there in these days is, I mean, help me save your lives by not even coming into the emergency department, right? So if you let me correct your metabolic health, you won't need me to save your life in the emergency department unless and until you have a trauma.
Yeah.
You know, you probably won't come in with a heart attack or a diabetic ketoacidosis or a stroke or complications of cancer or Alzheimer's, and then the complications of all of those dementias. hypothyroidism and its complications, it's not going to happen,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, if you let me save your life outside the emergency department, you've got a better chance of living a longer life and a long and a healthy life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the plan.
That's commendable. We need people like you, especially in places like India and all over the world, really. I feel that the people that are mainly talking about the carnivore diet are Americans at this point, American doctors. Um, I don't know of any international doctor. I have to, I probably am forgetting. Maybe there's one. But yeah, we're pretty much all here.
Australia, yeah.
Aust who,
You
Chafee?
have Dr. You have Chafee, you have
Right,
Dr.
but technically he's an
Gary
American. But
Fetke,
yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right.
you have Gary Fetke, who's Australian.
Right. Mason,
Yeah.
Dr. Paul
Paul
Mason.
Mason, yeah. Paul
Is it?
Mason's
He's in
there,
Australia too, right? Or
yeah. Yeah.
Matetki is in New Zealand.
No, he's in Australia.
Who's in New Zealand? There's somebody in New Zealand.
That's Professor Bart K.
Right. There
He's
you go.
settled in New Zealand right now, yeah.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, that's good. We've got that continent wrapped.
Yeah.
You've got India. So we need somebody in Canada. I think South America is lacking for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So South America's got Dr. Ana Rosa. She's now moved to the US. She was from Brazil,
Uh-huh.
and she's a radiologist. So she's doing a lot of scans, and she's actually officially reporting visceral fat in the radiology scans that she's doing for her patients, CTs and MRIs.
Okay.
So she's really nice. She's beautiful, amazing person, amazing doctor. She's a radiologist. So, and she had to study radiology in Brazil first, med school in radiology. Then she moved to the US, had to go to med school again and do radiology again.
Wow.
And none of the times she was ever taught regarding visceral fat and how to see visceral fat till she met Sean O'Mara.
Wow.
And and now she's reporting that. So yeah, you I can introduce you. You can get her onto
Yeah.
your channel
Oh
also. It'll
yeah.
be really nice for you to have that.
Totally. Yeah. Right after we wrap up this interview, you'll give me all the contacts. And she's a
Yep.
carnivore.
She's a carnivore.
Nice. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Where can people find you, connect with you, listen to your podcast?
So I'm on Instagram by the name of thecarnivore.ep. EP stands for emergency physician. And my podcast is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's called the Desi EM Project, DESI EM Project. You can find me on X, that's ANKSV25, and LinkedIn. Yeah. So I've started to post a lot of things on LinkedIn, especially my podcast reels, because there are a lot of doctors on my LinkedIn. So, they're starting to wake up. Yeah.
Right, right. You're ruffling some feathers right now.
Yeah, somebody
Be
has to.
careful,
No,
right?
it's actually being appreciated by a lot of people because they understand what I'm talking about, and in the sense that we've never been taught all of this,
Yeah,
you know. And
yeah.
and I'm posting my conversations with people, right? And just asking questions. So yeah, it's going
Fantastic.
well, I think. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. The work that you're doing is so important. I am so grateful that you are sharing your wisdom, your experience on the carnivore, and not being afraid to go against the status quo. So it's really commendable. And thank you so much for coming on this show. And I hope everybody enjoyed this type of content. I will make sure that I post your links in the description box below so people can find you easily. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us till the end. If you enjoyed this kind of content, let me know in the comment section. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that little notification bell icon so YouTube alerts you every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Ankur, Dr.
Thank you,
Verma.
Sarah.
And
Thank you, Sarah.
until
It's been a
next time,
pleasure. Yeah.
thank you so much. It's always, always fantastic when we get to chat, and I'm sure this won't be the last time.
No, it
Thank you.
won't. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.